Did you ever think the daqan were just a little too goody-goody? Well, with the addition of the Baron Zac expansion, they got a bit of evil coming their way. Hello everyone and welcome back to the BattleCast. Today's video we're going to be taking a look at the newest hero expansion for the daqan army. It's the Lord Zachareth hero expansion. And this puppy's, he's a bit of an evil fella. He goes both ways, both savior and betrayer. And in this video, we're going to take a look at what you get in the box, and as well as some quirky gameplay mechanics this guy can pull off. So without further ado, let's get into it. Hello everyone. So before me is the Baron Zac expansion for the daqan army. And pretty impressive model here, especially the mount. Comes in a nice hard box. And on the back, it reads, "Stand for Terranoth or conquer for ambition. Called warmonger, opportunist, and even hero, Baron Zachareth of Carthage occupies an uneasy seat of power among the daqan lords. On the battlefield, Zachareth is feared for his devious stratagems and held in awe for the arcane lore that he wields to empower his forces and destroy his foes. At council, Zachareth's true ambitions and loyalties remain hidden beyond his charismatic presence and silver tongue." Sounds like a pretty sinister fella. Well, let's go ahead and bust it open and lay it before us. Here's everything you get, and it comes with a hefty amount of plastic. Let's go ahead and assemble the figures. Before we go any farther into the contents of the box, let's take a look at the figures and their amazing detail. So I'm just going to come out and say it. This guy is an awesome figure. Possibly one of my favorites, actually. Kethra Alak had a lot to be enjoyed, but this guy's mount is unbelievable. I love the way his sword is just like so erect, and just his facial features are really good detail. I think they really did a great job on this guy. One of the best, if not the best figures. And talk about, ambitious, making a new type of mount, because Kethra was riding a flesh ripper, but this guy's riding, some sort of own construct, which I think is really cool. Now, the human version of Baron Z is actually pretty cool. Also very 3D, really nice pose. Looks like he's billowing in the wind. I must say I was a little disappointed that he didn't have like a fireball in his hand somehow. But it's very evident that he's knowledgeable of the arcane arts. Good figure. Definitely a huge step up from the initial figures, Carrie Wraithstalker and Ardus, I think. But you should never trust a man with a goatee, so keep that in mind. Alright, back to the box, and before me is what you get. The Vitality tokens, you get the most unique tokens out of any expansion here. You do get your double-sided Hero of Carthage and then Betrayer of Carthage condition token, which is pretty cool. We'll go through the character, terrain, and objective cards now. Alright, so we're going to talk about our double-side terrain here. The first one is the Field Encampment, which holds 4 units, and it reads, "A unit occupying this terrain may ready 1 upgrade after its activation." And that's pretty strong. Definitely this makes being attacked in a piece of terrain possibly appealing, as you could, ready up your shield wall, although being a 4 unit's not that big. Maybe a archer unit with close combat targeting might be good, some crossbowmen or something like that. But yeah, that's pretty unique. I really like that. The next side is the Silver Vein, which also holds 4. And you get cover 1, so defense against ranged attacks. Taxing 1, so you receive a panic token if you enter the terrain. And the skill is score 10 points, limit once per game. So we've kind of seen this before with the the Abandoned Mansion or something. It came with the Uthuk expansion, I believe. But it's nice, it's always good to get victory points in other ways, and I think contesting terrain is a cool part of the game. Yeah, so that's nice. Next up here is the deployment card, and it's called Column Ambush. It comes with 1 of each terrain, and the setup is pretty unique. I can't tell who is ambushing who. I mean, obviously, I guess the blue side is ambushing, but I can't tell which one I would prefer to be. Yeah, having the big blob, I guess there's a lot of, depending on what type of army you have, you could be doing a lot of bumping into yourself if you're not careful, whereas with the blue, you've got a little more space. So maybe I would rather be the blue, I'm not sure, but pretty unique deployment. I don't think we've ever seen a deployment where you're entirely in the middle, not touching a single edge. So I like it. I think it's a cool card. I'd love to give that a go for sure. Next, we're going to talk about the condition card, the Savior of Carthage. And basically, the Savior of Carthage lets you, when you equipped it, perform all units within range 1 to 3 can perform a rally. And then you gain the skill to give a ally range 1 to 5 a vitality token, and you receive a stun token. So you're basically saying, I'm going to take the damage, or I'm going to suffer so you can be better off. And we're going to get into much more detail about this card in the gameplay session at the end of the video, so stick around. So conversely, we have the Betrayer of Carthage card, and this card reads, on a melee or a ranged attack, you can cause another ally at range 1 to 3 to receive a stun token to add a red dice or a blue dice to this attack. And furthermore, you gain the skill, choose another ally at range 1 to 5. That ally receives 1 stun token, then you receive a vitality token. So this is basically saying, I'm the important one here, everyone else can suffer. Very evil. And, with Baron having 3 armor, this vitality token is going to be fairly valuable, actually. So pretty interesting card. We're going to talk about these a little later in the gameplay section. So next I'm going to talk about the objective card, and bear with me as these are always a bit of a mouthful. But to paraphrase, basically each person has 2 objective tokens, and the tokens have to be placed beyond range 1 to 2 of deployment and beyond range 1 of terrain. That's pretty standard. But the tokens themselves have to be 3 to 5 range apart from each other. And then essentially they're acting as like a bit of a force field. So between the 2 tokens, you basically, if anyone shoots you through those tokens, if line of sight is drawn through the force field, if you will, 1 dice gets taken away after rerolls, and then the attacker chooses, of course. And then also, if at the end phase, if a unit is overlapping this force field, so like in the middle of the force field, you can actually ready an upgrade, or you can get rid of a Bane of your choice. And even if you're in terrain, and terrain is overlapping these force fields, you can do the same. So this is a very interesting objective. No extra points are awarded during the gameplay, so that's kind of nice if you just want to, slug it out. But the ability to park a troop and refresh your upgrades and reduce damage taken is pretty incredible. I'm definitely a huge fan of that. So great card, very unique. So next we're actually going to talk about the Baron Zac card itself and the unit itself. And you can see he has 4 health, 3 armor, so 12 effective damage absorption, and that's pretty good. That's fairly standard for these guys. He comes with Brutal 1 and Precise 1, which is also fairly standard. And now he has a unique ability or a unique passive, and it says, before your activation, you may either receive Savior of Carthage or Betrayer of Carthage, limit once per game. So this is a decision that you're making once per game. And I like this "you may" because it's kind of thematic in the sense that he's like a reluctant hero. He doesn't choose to be the hero of Carthage or the savior until maybe it's necessary. Conversely, he also chooses to be the betrayer, as if, he's been plotting. So you don't enter the game with your opponent knowing this information. You kind of spring it on them before your activation, which I think is really cool, and it allows you to kind of adapt to the battlefield as it's unfolding. Now, as far as dice goes, he gets 1 red dice for his ranged attack, which kind of fits his aggressive mage theme. And then he also, for his melee, he gets a white and a red, which is pretty good. I mean, lots of people get 2 white, but white and a red is not bad. Now, on the other side, we see that he costs 38 points. So he's a squeak cheaper than Vorenthal. Same upgrade slots as most heroes. And he gets runic augmentation. So after setup, choose up to 3 allies. Each of those allies receives a vitality token. And augmentation is kind of a nice word because He's basically like empowering his army. And this is probably one of the most value hero traits out there. You know, some people give out, panic tokens and immobilize, and artist lets you build a cheaper, more effective army, and carry lets you bring some Latari units if you want. And all those are very strong, but they definitely require some like list building. But runic augmentation is just like straight up value. It's always going to be useful, and you don't really have to think about it. It's choose 3 allies. They don't have to be close to you. So we're talking rune golems are going to benefit hugely from this. Any other heroes you bring are going to benefit hugely from this. So really, really straight off the bat value from Baron Zac. An amazing trait. So I really like this guy quite a bit. So we're going to talk about Baron Z's command tool, starting with the blue actions, which are for the most part his mobility actions. And it's fairly versatile. I mean, he has a charge 1 at initiative 2, which is gotta be up there. I mean, I know Carrie can do a quick one like that, and I think Aliana can do that, but I mean, that's fast. That's really fast. He can do 2 at 3 and 3 at 7, so fairly standard. He has a shift 1, and so what's cool about this fella is he can do a charge with no penalty, a turn with no penalty, and he can of course armor during any of his movements. He has a rally at 4, which is not the fastest, but it's not the slowest either. But he can do a shift charge, which I think is always nice. I mean, once in a blue moon that comes up, and it's pretty valuable. Next are the green actions, and these are pretty good. We have a range attack at initiative 5, and this pairs very well with his other green abilities, which are reform if you need to. You can keep your bead on the target. Shift, which is also extremely versatile with a ranged attack, and a move forward too, so you can kind of scoot and shoot, which, I mean, that's also good, but, if you're using ranged attacks, maybe you don't want to get quite in there, I don't know. He also has a move 2 at initiative 7, which is kind of nice. I like the high initiative move not a ton abilities because it allows you to kind of get a feel for the battlefield. So you kind of sit back, wait until initiative 7, then you could do a move 2 reform or a move 2 shift or a move 2, but maybe not, I don't know. So the green actions are quite versatile. I really like them. And thanks to his white modifiers, he can of course do a ranged attack, add in a hit, and also do a skill after his ranged attack, which is quite powerful, and we'll talk about that a little later in the gameplay session. So he only has the 1 red action, which is his melee attack at 4, which is pretty standard, and he can dial in a skill, and he can dial in a hit. So with his brutal, that's nice, and the skill's also good. So we're going to talk about upgrades next, and the first is a unique Baron Z upgrade only, and it's 4 points, and it's Nerakal training. And the Nerakal, I think, are the, wizards. So basically what it's saying is, your ranged attack is like fireballs. So you're strengthening your ranged attack and weakening your melee attack. So it says you must replace one of your red dice with a white dice for your ranged attack. And then you gain the unique surge ability that a defender receives a bane of your choice. And then the melee attack says you must replace one of your white dice with a red dice. So, as I say, strengthening ranged, weakening melee. And the unique surge on this thing is quite strong, considering he has a ranged attack initiative of 5, which is standard. But you can definitely reap some havoc, and we'll talk about this in the gameplay session afterwards. Next upgrade is the Greyhaven Rune Lore for 4 points as well, and it's a melee attack unique surge. Reduce the defender's defense by 1 for this attack, and then you get impact based on the stable runes. I think it's fine, but honestly, I don't know. I don't think it's as good as the other one. The next upgrade is a unique for Baron Zac only, and when I read this card for the first time, I just had to stop and sit quietly for a minute. Because do you remember that game where you had these command tools and you would set them up and no one would know what was on them, and it was about mind games and outplaying your opponent, and what was it called again? It was Runewars miniatures game, right? Right, I remember that game as well. Well, with the Lord of Subterfuge upgrade, after the command phase, so after all the dials have been set, you may exhaust this card to choose up to stable enemies, so potentially 2, at range 1 to 5 and in line of sight, and look at their command tools. Then, 1 ally may change its selected action and modifier. So basically, Obviously, Baron Z is like some sort of espionage master of the courts. He's a shady fella, but like that is strong. And he does have the Hero of Carthage ability, so people can get rally tokens, and this is so valuable on its own. I mean, this would be worth rallying him relentlessly, especially, or even just carrying a one of the rallying homies who can refresh your upgrades, because this is amazing. It's not even discard, it's exhaust. So the power this gives you in those situations where you're trying to mentally duke it out with your opponent, deciding who's going to charge at what initiative and whatever. I mean, my goodness, talk about taking the element of outplay out of a scenario with 5 points. Wow, what a strong card. Must have. Next upgrade is his infantry upgrade. So this adds 6 effective damage to a unit for 21 points, which is pretty expensive actually. And it says you may replace a die with a white die. Now, Ardis and Carey add white dice, same with Hawthorne, but he's replacing, so that is worse. It is for a ranged attack as well, though. And then you gain the Savior of Carthage, Betrayer of Carthage abilities, which are pretty valuable. I mean, the rallying ability is awesome, and the Betrayer is quite an aggressive build. Now, there is a meme in the making here for like the most expensive unit of all time, but basically imagine this. You've got a 6 block of heavy crossbowmen, okay? They've got the Baron of Carthage they have Baron Zach with the Betrayer of Carthage, okay? They've got simultaneous orders, they've got the Rallying Cornisan, and they've got the Wind Rune. And basically, they can just fly around the map using Wind Rune, while they're doing ranged attack, they're going to be dishing out stun tokens. They're suddenly going to be using a white dice, a red dice, and possibly another red dice, so 3 dice. They would be worth like 80 points, but still, I mean, there's some fun things you can do with this fella. And they would, of course, be gaining vitality tokens, which would make them very strong indeed. So some funny things you can do with this card. 21 points is a lot, but I think there's some memery to be had. Next is his cavalry upgrade, which is much the same, except that the Oathsworn do have 2 armor, so I guess it makes vitality tokens a little better than it would on somebody like the Leonks, who have 2 health, 1 armor. But yeah, same thing. This card is a card we're seeing quite a bit of when it comes to heroes, and it's the Shard of the Shadow Rune. After a melee ranged attack, if at least one of the trays of the defender was destroyed, you can either perform a rally and exhaust this card, or discard a wound token. So it's kind of like a Visceral Goblet, just some sort of regeneration for the heroes. And it's not too bad. I think if you're running the Betrayer of Carthage, wiping out a tray of some chaff is not going to be that hard of an expectation to meet. So there you have the review of what's in the box. We're going to go ahead and actually do some gameplay and practical applications of what we've all just learned. Alright, we're going to take a look at the Baron Zachareth playstyle and what kind of funky shenanigans he can pull off. Now, for the purposes of this video, my daqan troops are not currently with me at the moment, so I'm going to be using a 4 block of reanimates to represent the daqan infantry, the spearmen, and these berserkers will just be berserkers. So right off the bat, Baron Zach for short, says before your activation, you may either receive the Savior of Carthage, or the Betrayer of Carthage once per game. What's cool about this is it's you may receive and before your activation. So technically, before each activation, you can decide if you want to do this. And they have some pretty interesting results. So here is the Savior. Really cool artwork, very pretty. I like it. It does look very saviory. So when you receive this card, each ally at range 1 to 3 can perform a rally. Now this can be extremely effective. Imagine if you're fighting the Uthuk and everyone gets a panic token, or whatever the case may be. There may come a time when everybody has used their exhaust cards, their exhaustible upgrades, like Moment of Inspiration, and then you decide before Baron's activation to equip the Savior of Carthage, and everybody gets a rally and they can actually reset those upgrades. So that's pretty cool. And then he gains the skill, choose another ally at range 1 to 5. that ally receives a vitality token. It's another, so just one, and you receive a stun. So this is kind of hurting yourself to benefit others. And one thing I'll point out is that vitality tokens, essentially, if they're on a unit, when they would receive a wound, you may get rid of the vitality token to negate that damage. Now, on someone like the Berserkers, it means nothing. But on somebody like Rune Golem, who you have to do 4 damage to get through, I mean, this guy essentially is countering out 4 damage, which that's bang for buck. Now, conversely, the Betrayer of Carthage means, when you perform a ranged or melee, I believe the other one is, so ranged or melee, you may cause another ally at range 1 to 5 to receive a stun token to add a red dice or blue dice to this attack. And then the skill, choose an ally at range 1 to 5, that ally receives a stun token, and you receive a vitality token. So pretty impressive. You can make our homie here, Baron Zach, negate 3 points of damage, because of course he has 3 armor, takes 3 damage to get through his armor, and with this one you receive a vitality token, so you can keep stacking yourself up. Now his token, or his dial, means that he can attack skill, so I mean, he's actually quite resilient, and this is ranged and melee, so if you chose, you could, ranged attack some people and build up your vitality tokens, making you extremely resilient. Now I'll just check the rules here. I don't think, let's see, it's a type of boon when a unit has a boon token, so there isn't actually a cap on this boon. Let's just make sure. So it doesn't appear like you can't, I mean, this guy could be extremely hard to kill. I mean, if he's just stacking. So what I'm envisioning is as follows. Imagine that this Carrion Lancer is its daqan counterpart, the Rune Golem. You could just parade these two around together, And Baron here, he could just start laying down a whooping. He could start just ranged attacking. And guess what? Our good friend, the Rune Golem's going to receive a stun token. And, I'm going to use my skill as well. And, that Rune Golem receives a stun token. Because stun counters out your secondary dial. And so, really, I mean, you could have a unit whose primary dial is rally, and maybe they can move on their secondary or whatever. But if you kept a unit like a Rune Golem and just slaved them to Baron Zach, this guy could just dump tokens onto them. Their only goal is to absorb tokens. And now Buddy here is rolling more dice for his attacks. He's becoming harder to kill because this peon is just taking all of his shit. So it's actually it's a pretty cool tactic. So pretty nifty is he does have a ranged attack at 5, and then he has the Nerakal training. You can replace one of your red with a white dice, you must. And then if you get a surge, they receive a bane of your choice. Now his ranged attack only has the characteristic of 1 red, so basically you're rolling a white. Getting a surge on a white is fairly easy. We just did it there. We got our surge hit. And what's really cool about a bane of your choice is you can really tailor it to what you need. So for example, I mean, the Uthuk are pretty quick, but if, homie was here and he's at a decent range, he's at, a range 3. So the Uthuk maybe need to charge at a later initiative than 5. Maybe let's say Baron has the advantage. Well, he could actually ranged attack him, go ahead, get the surge, gets the unique surge, and then he equips him with a stun token. And if they didn't have any inspiration tokens, their charge would be negated. They would just go dunk and bonk into him instead. So that's pretty devastating, being able to lock that up. You could get an immobilization token. They can't even move. I mean, that lockdown ability is quite good. I like that a lot. Aside from those 2 interactions, there's nothing too shenanigan-y that I need to demonstrate here. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. New videos come out every Friday or Saturday. If you enjoyed this video, consider giving it a like or even subscribing to the channel, or you can leave me a comment in the section below. Until next video, I'll see you then. Thanks.